Tonight on SportsBuzz, we're going to jump into the NFL with our analyst, then bounce to some basketball, NBA and college. Then we'll wrap up with a look into soccer. All that and more on SportsBuzz.
Welcome back to Sports Buzz alongside Justin DeVellis. I'm Gino Ganello. And Justin, we had a packed week of NFL football, a couple of really good games here on Championship Sunday. We'll start out, two really great games between four really great teams. What stood out to you in this one?
Well, I would probably say how good the Jaguars were in the first half against the Patriots. I mean, we all thought maybe they'd come out a little slow. Who knows? But, I mean, they had a lead at halftime, and I was really just surprised with their overall effort.
Yeah, no, the Jags definitely played very well in this one. They started well in the Steelers game too, so they showed right off the bat in that game that they can compete in these playoffs, and they did so again against the Patriots. And then the Vikings game was pretty surprising too, as the Eagles beat up on the Vikings, a team that came off that miraculous win not too long ago. But we're going to take a look at that Jags-Patriots game right now as we start things off up north, where the surging Jags charged in New England looking for blood, while Tom Brady and the Pats tried to break down that powerful defense in an attempt to reach yet another Super Bowl. We pick things up in the second quarter. Jags down 3-0. Bortles would find Mercedes Lewis in the corner of the end zone, take the 7-3 lead there early in this game. Then Leonard Fournette would find the end zone for the Jags. Jags up to a big start, as we were just mentioning, up 14-3. Leonard Fournette feeling it. But the Patriots would come back. James White would get into the end zone. A little hard tackle there by Myles Jack caused a little fight. Nothing too serious, though. Patriots would be down 4 going in the half. Now we pick it up in the fourth quarter. Josh Lambo would kick a 43-yard field goal to put the Jags up 20-10. But, as we know, the Patriots are always in the game. And Danny Amendola find the end zone here off of a Tom Brady pass to cut the deficit to 3. And then late in the fourth quarter, Tom Brady would put the dagger in the Jags as he'd find Danny Amendola once again. We're going to get another look at that right here. Danny Amendola gets both feet in. The Jags would have one more chance to take this one, but the Patriots would take it overall 24-20. Blake Bortles, despite the loss, had a terrific game, going 23 for 36, with 293 yards and a touchdown. Patriots advanced their 4th Super Bowl this decade and their 3rd in 4 years.
Now over to Philadelphia, where the Minnesota Vikings look to plunder Lincoln Financial Field, coming off a miracle victory against the New Orleans Saints. Pick things up in the first, it's scoreless. Case Keenum finds Kyle Rudolph 25 yards, and they got a little celebration going afterwards with the curling. 7-0 Vikings. We're still in the first. Interception by Patrick Robinson. The Eagles' defensive back would take it all the way. Look at him getting some blocks there as he just reaches over the pylon to make it 7-7. Yeah, Keenum feeling it. It's in the second quarter now. LeGarrette Blount pounds forward. Little truck stick action there for the touchdown. 14-7 Eagles. But the Eagles would come right back on defense. Keenum is strip sacked. Leads to this. Foles is going to go up top. 53 yards. That pass to Alshon Jeffrey. And the Eagles were up 21-7. And they got a little fancy with it. In the third, Foles, flea flicker, pass for a touchdown all the way to Torrey Smith. And the Eagles just had a feast on their home field. They take the victory. And the kneel victory formation, Nick Foles, 3 touchdowns, that pass to Jeffrey and to Torrey Smith. The Eagles are going to move on to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Well, after those 2 great games, Championship Sunday, we had to go out and get our NFL analyst, Alex Moore. Alex, how you doing today?
I'm glad to be back.
It's great. It's great to have you back, and we're gonna start things right off here. Alex, did you expect the winners of these divisional games, and what did you think of the turnouts?
Well, I know the emotional favorite was the Jaguars for the majority of the country, as I think a lot of people are just kind of tired of the Patriots. But at the same time, deep down, if you're just kind of thinking with your head, not with your heart, you had to expect that they were going to find a way to pull this one out. The Jaguars simply just didn't do enough early like they did versus the Steelers, and I think they just left that window a little bit too open late in the game. I was surprised at the way the Jaguars were able to hold them off for that third quarter. I really thought that the Patriots were really going to establish themselves offensively in the third quarter, and that didn't happen. So I wasn't surprised at the halftime score, but I think the Jacksonville just allowed the Patriots to stay in it with that touchdown late in the second quarter. And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, you can never count Brady out. He finds a way to get it done. Amazing passes, and Bortles just couldn't match him pass for pass late in the game. I had said last week that if it came down to it, if Bortles had to win the game for him, it was going to be very tough at the end.
Yeah, I was just way too excited to ask that first question. I was so pumped after the games this weekend. You talked about the quarterbacks, okay? Talk about the matchup now in the Super Bowl, specifically the contrast in experience among the two quarterbacks and the talent that each of them possess.
Well, they each possess a lot of talent. I'm not going to say that Nick Foles is some kind of a shoe-in or that he doesn't have the talent. Some people forget that just a few years ago he was actually a Pro Bowl quarterback with this team, a different offense under Chip Kelly. This is a team that's a little bit more balanced, but as we saw, he can still throw the ball around. It looked like the old Nick Foles from 3 or 4 years ago in that NFC Championship game. But I think the Vikings, it was a bit of a hangover from the previous game. I don't know if you're going to see that versus the Patriots. Of course, as we mentioned with Brady, it's all the experience in the world, of course. And I think that is going to play a factor. And I think it could be that Foles will be nervous early in the game. But the Eagles are going to need to get out to a quick start, because if this game stays close early, as it has in all of these Super Bowls for the Patriots, more often than not, they're going to find a way to win it. So the Eagles need to get out to that quick start like they got out. Well, not necessarily early on versus the Vikings, but once they got their foot on the gas, they were able to really take control. And that's what they're going to need to do at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see the Eagles do that in this game, but Jags, another team that was able to jump out to a big lead, something that's going to be key in playing the Patriots. But another thing key in playing the Patriots is you're going to have to play Tom Brady. How do you think playing Tom Brady affects Nick Foles, if at all? Do you think he'll be intimidated playing him, not play as well? How do you think it factors in?
Well, it's going to be in the back of his head for sure. I mean, there's no second guessing that. I mean, of course, I think Nick Foles will say all the right things when they speak to him. There are only certain things that he can say and not say, of course, but it's got to be on his mind. Of course, I think for Brady, obviously, there's some thoughts and things going through his head as well. It's just that he's more prepared because he's been through it before. And maybe in his mind, Brady's the older quarterback now, and he's looking across the field at a younger quarterback. Could this be a changing of the guard kind of situation? So there's something for Brady to think about as well, psychologically.
So you just spoke on that. You touched on this next question that I'm going to get to. Do you think that it's the end of Tom Brady's career? Say he wins this Super Bowl.
Well, there hasn't really been a whole lot of discussion about that. When we look back just a couple of years for Peyton Manning, or even way back to say like John Elway, guys who were winning championships late in their career, there were whispers and all kinds of discussions about this being their last year. It could be their last year. And then, of course, it was their last year. There hasn't really been any discussion like that with Brady or even with Belichick for that matter. And I think if they win this Super Bowl, the pride's going to get a hold of them and think, we want to see if we can make history and win that third in a row that no team has been able to do. But at the same time, Father Time, you can't escape it no matter how good you are. And I think even after winning this, it's going to be extremely difficult to win 3 in a row. What I do think, though, is if they somehow lose this game, that could really weigh heavily on them because they've put so much into this season. That may give them a lot more to think about in the offseason about whether they should call it quits. It's more likely to happen if they don't win than if they do win, I think.
That'll definitely be interesting to see. As we know, Tom Brady's saying he will play till 45, but we'll see how he holds up till then. But these two teams, we just talked about the differences at quarterback, and that's a big part about game planning. How do you think the coaches have to come up with strategies, the Patriots for the Eagles and the Eagles for the Patriots?
Well, that's a really good question. The first thing I think about, of course, is Belichick because he's so famous for strategizing. Even if you go all the way back to the early 90s and he was the defensive coordinator for the Giants, that was so famous for what he did, what he came up with to beat the Bills. And you look at this team with the Eagles and their offense, something very similar there. This is a team that likes to throw the ball, as you saw in the NFC Championship game. You just know that Belichick is thinking, we want to force them to run the ball. Let's see if the Eagles can figure out early if they need to run the ball to be successful, as the Falcons did early in the game last year. What happened with the Falcons was they kind of got away from the game plan. They started to kind of play right into the defense of the Patriots. If the Eagles can run the ball effectively early, that's going to increase their odds of winning this game, but they have to stick to it. If they try to force the ball in there, it's going to be something similar to what you maybe saw in the early 90s, where you have a low-scoring game, then the Patriots take over late. Eagles have a great defense, so they're going to try and put pressure on Brady. Very different defense from the Patriots, of course. But Brady's got so much experience. That offensive line knows what's coming. You have a feeling they're going to be ready for it. They may try to get physical with Brady, but at this point, it seems like it's going to be hard to really get inside of his head or get to him physically at this point.
Quick answer right now on the spot. Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Part of me wants to root for Nick Foles because he is a Texas quarterback. In fact, he went to the same high school as Drew Brees. So I've been trying to tell people who don't want to root for the Eagles, hey, just think if you like Texas football, root for the Texas quarterback. But when I think about it at the end of the day, the Patriots are favored by 5 points going into this game. That could definitely change between this week and next week. In fact, it'll probably get even closer before next Sunday. This is all about experience and the game getting close. You just have a feeling that Brady's going to come through if it's a close game, and you expect it to be close. So I think the Patriots in a close game could come down to last-second field goal or touchdown.
And I think we've all learned not to count out Brady no matter how late in the game. Alex, thank you for joining us. Coming up after the break, we're going to get into some NBA basketball. We can't forget college basketball and some soccer after that. All that and more coming up on SportsBuzz.
SportsBuzz is brought to you by The Vitamin Shop. With over 300 locations nationwide, shopping has never been easier. Use a convenience store locator or shop online at vitaminshop.com. Welcome back to SportsBuzz. Gino, we've had a ton of action going on in the National Basketball Association. Got All-Star Weekend coming up. You got a bunch of fighting going on. I mean, there's just so much going on in the National Basketball Association.
The storylines are unbelievable. You hear a crazy story every day, which it blows your mind that this could even happen. But one of the stories I think we need to discuss is one of the more serious stories. The fighting with the refs. A lot of NBA players have been arguing with the refs nonstop, and it just seems like it's escalated this year as opposed to other years. It's like everybody thinks they deserve all these different calls. We had Kevin Durant the other day, screaming at refs, basically asking for a tech. He did apologize for that. But what do you think? What do you think the main reason for this is? It's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell, and I don't know if there's a main reason. And I'm not really sure. You had the fighting amongst the players about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But now it seems that you're getting these ejections from the officials, and these players are getting more and more technical fouls. I think a lot goes into it, but I think that there's some older officials that are left in the game, a guy like Ken Mauer, older officials, but you also have new officials coming in that are kind of like the new guard. And old officials handle stuff differently with players, and new people that come in, and in today's day and age, they have a different, kind of style, how to handle players, how to talk to them. And I think that could contribute to the problems we've seen with technical fouls and the players. It's becoming a huge problem. You're right.
Yeah, and that absolutely, it makes sense because, first off, older officials, like you said, they call the game differently. But a lot of times these players develop relationships with these officials. And then they build these relationships with these older officials. These new officials come in, and they basically call fouls that have never been called on these guys before. But I think one of the main reasons, too, is, everybody's a superstar in the NBA. We have every team has now 2-3 superstars, and everybody expects to get those calls. When we're used to, Michael Jordan, obviously would get those calls. There's no more role players in the NBA. It's 3 superstars on a team. So as a superstar, you feel privileged, and you should get all these calls. But there's only so many calls to go around. So it's crazy that this is even a topic, but it's a serious problem that needs to be fixed.
And a player who likes to do that, who likes to drive to the hole and hopefully get a foul call, LeBron James. Been a lot of news about LeBron lately. What do you think about his season so far?
Well, I think he's playing just as well as he ever has. He's averaging a little over 26 points a game, almost 10 rebounds, 10 assists, somewhere near that. But it's mainly for me is the factor that he doesn't have Kyrie. Kyrie was a key, and if you watch those NBA Finals last 3 seasons, when Kyrie was on, The Cavs would win. When Kyrie was off, the Cavs wouldn't win. The second leading scorer right now is Kevin Love, and he's the one who's basically everybody claiming is the source of their problems. So, obviously.
And LeBron's 30,000 points, too, don't forget.
Which, it's a whole nother story because him thanking himself on Instagram, I think, is absolutely bizarre and just ridiculous. But, when you're arguing and saying that the second leading scorer on your team is the one that's the source of all your problems, that's definitely a problem.
And like you said, it wasn't a good look because you have someone like Isaiah Thomas who it's his first year with the team, and now he's maybe saying things to reporters that they misconstrue, or he talks about negativity in the locker room, stuff gets out, and they blame Kevin Love for everything, which I don't know if that's necessarily warranted, but you shouldn't see that as a team. It shouldn't be going around in the media like that, and it was kind of not that great.
And now they're talking about trades for everyone, and how LeBron. All these rumors come up, and that's how things start. But speaking of trades, the big trade that went down over the summer, Kyrie going to the Celtics. It's really shaped the standings now. The Celtics are taking their spot at number 1 in the East, even without Gordon Hayward, who we thought was going to be a very big part of this season. But it's definitely made things a little different up near the top, something we're not used to. And the Eastern Conference, and we'll take a look at some of the standings right here. Eastern Conference, you have the Celtics, the Raptors, then the Cavaliers. How many times have we seen that in the last 5 seasons since LeBron's been back? Really, it's been truly amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you there on the East. I like the Western Conference as well. Interesting matchup between the Rockets and the Warriors this past Saturday. Rockets actually won that season series between them and the Golden State Warriors, defending champs. And then you got a lot of teams in the West. I mean, you got the Thunder are hot right now. I mean, they just scored 150 points, that historical night they had against the Cavs. And you got a team like the Spurs without Kawhi Leonard, who are at 3. The Timberwolves, who have dropped, a few games, but not before they were on a huge streak. And then you got the Blazers and Nuggets rounding at the top. I think the West has a ton of talent, but I think the big question is, will the Rockets, they've been good in past seasons, but the real question is, will they actually foot the bill? Will they actually step up and actually challenge the Golden State Warriors late in the playoffs to prove their worth?
No, yeah, absolutely. And Young Guns have certainly been a star of this season as well. We're going to have to take a quick break, but coming up after the break, we're gonna get to our college basketball analyst to talk a little bit about what's happening at that level of the game, as well as some soccer talk as the transfer window heats up. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Sports Buzz here in the sit-down corner with our college basketball analyst, Melissa Pravada. Melissa, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
So a ton of stuff went down this week. Let's start first right off with women's college basketball, okay? We see UConn and Mississippi State playing really well. Do you predict the same thing going down with the loss UConn had last year against Mississippi State?
Well, what a heartbreaking loss that was last year for UConn, and unfortunately, I do see that happening for them again. Mississippi State, that was their first time they made it to the championship last year. First Final Four for them last year, first Elite Eight for them last year. They've been to the NCAA tournament 9 times, but I just think that they want that title for their school, so they're just going to keep competing for it. Tiara McCown actually sat down with Andy Katz, and they've just been practicing. She's one of the veterans from last year. She's saying they've been working harder, just trying to cover all the ground they can cover to not make the same mistakes they made last year in the championship game. UConn has been in the NCAA tournament 29 times since 1989. They've been there every year. They have 18 Final Fours and 11 championships under their belt. So obviously every team, that's the goal, but I really think Mississippi State's going to step it up so that they can get that title for their school.
Sure, and tons of championships going UConn's way. So talk a little bit about what it takes for the top players this year, both men's and women's, both men's and women's college basketball, and the pressure they're under to perform well.
Well, college basketball is probably the #1 sport that you're going to see pressure like no other sport there is. Every play kind of comes down to such an exciting moment. That's why these kids, especially in college, like compared to the pros, they're playing with all their heart. You know, they have something to prove, to, you know, get to the next level even if they want to play. And, you know, everybody plays college basketball. They go into school for a different reason, whether it be, you know, you're getting help with your tuition, you want to be a part of the organization, or just the love of the game. And I think, you know, you have this random standouts like Grayson Allen at Duke or Trae Young with the Sooners, and those are the kids who are actually going to give it their all to prove that they can play at the next level. For instance, you had Ben Simmons last year playing at LSU, is now on the 76ers. He's 21 years old, and last night in the game against the Bulls, he nearly notched a triple-double right before the half. So, you know, you're going to get those standouts that can excel, that can play to their best potential they can, despite the pressure of the game.
Right. So you talked about the star players. Okay, you talked about Ben Simmons. Now, the star players today, in today's college game, Trae Young, okay, Grayson Allen are just two of them. How do you think they'll do down the stretch, and do you think these players will be able to take their team to the next level?
I think we'll definitely see them taking their teams to the next level. We're obviously going to see Duke dancing in March. You know, players like Trae Young, he's putting up numbers like Steph Curry was at Davidson. You know, he's averaging 30.5 points per game. Steph Curry was averaging 28.6 points per game at his time at Davidson. They both have 39% field goal, 3-point averages.
Right, sure.
So, you know, when you're putting up numbers like those, you're definitely going to get those standout players who are kind of having the team on their back a little bit. And, you know, it means a lot to them, obviously, to be able to make it to March so they can prove that they can play at the next level.
Okay, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us talking college basketball. Stick around after the break when we come back to talk about players on the move in the Premier League. All this and more on SportsBuzz. SportsBuzz is brought to you by Berkshire Hathaway. Prudential Home and Sale is now Berkshire Hathaway. New name, new look, same great company. Welcome back to Sports Buzz. We're here with Gino Ganello. Let's start with some soccer. Gino, first let's talk Arsenal. Alexis Sanchez no longer with them. Give me your take on that.
I think it's a great move for the club. He's been a really big cancer in that locker room. It's been really bad. There's been a lot of trouble there. And him moving to Man United, it's the move he wanted. He's happy now. The club seems to be better off with a nice 2-1 win at Chelsea against Chelsea yesterday in the Carabao Cup. And it just seems like it's overall a better move for everybody involved. Arsenal are getting back Henrik Mkhitaryan, who's a terrific midfielder, and they've already put in a bid for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of Borussia Dortmund, who could really help their team. So it could be a good combination for them if they can get the job done. But definitely a good move for Alexis Sanchez and Arsenal. Both of them have been. It's definitely the right move for both of them.
Real quick, any other transfers you see at the end of January?
The one that I think is the biggest would be Edin Dzeko to Chelsea from Roma. He's already played in the Premier League with Manchester City. He's proven himself there, and I think he could come back and really help that team out.
All right, Gino, thank you so much. Talking soccer, thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so we are going to catch you next week. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports Buzz. I'm Justin DeVellis.
And I'm Gino Ganello. Thanks for watching.